Today, I'm joined by my guest, Ricky Purdy. He's the Director of Lettings at Dawsons. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm doing very, very well, David. As we mentioned just before the call, it's the weather's on side. It's the start of another week, yeah, looking forward to October as a full month. It's all good at the moment.
Nice and positive. Today, we're here to talk about one supplier in particular, and it's your experiences with a firm called Flatfair, who are well known in the sort of deposit alternative market, if you like. A lot of agents who haven't used them don't understand how it might directly benefit them or their customers. And those that have used them have had their eyes open. So where do you sit in that? And where were you before this? And where are you now?
We weren't, well, when we sort of, conversations started, or thought process of mine, sort of probably pre-COVID, if I'm honest, David, and then lots of things that weren't necessarily a necessity would have been a nice to have or a clear advantage when implemented, took a bit of a back seat. So look, in a bit more detail then, sort of maybe at the tail end of 21 and through the start of last year as to what we could do as a deposit alternative, looking at, another service, another customer service, USP within reason, or an angle of that, with the alternative to a traditional deposit, and started having conversations with 2 or 3 providers. The guys in the team at Flatfair, I've known them for a fair period of time. They're very personable, very honest, and they're very passionate about what they do, which made those initial conversations easier. So looking at what options there were, over a short period of time from the start of last year, took the view that I think Flatfair was the one for us for a number of reasons. That compatibility, what I felt they offered slightly different to their competitors. Their integration with some of the services and software that we use was obviously a key point as well. So we're a firm believer in Goodlord and have been with them for a long time. They integrate with Goodlord, and that would make the process, the journey, the onboarding, and then for the transition after smooth. Yeah, so a few factors in regards to that. But ultimately, yeah, we took the jump May, June last year in terms of starting that onboarding and setting ourselves a few criteria for them and from them to us, and sort of hit the ground with a bit of a jog July of last year. So we're about 15, 16, 17 months in, and it's going really well.
And so in terms of the impact that's then had on your customers, and particularly sort of tenants coming into new properties, do you feel it's opened up a sort of a different market to you in terms of affordability? Where do you feel that it sort of has helped you best?
Yes, it's definitely been the current climate and how it's been through this year. It's definitely an advantage. There was a lot of sort of, assumptions or hurdles to overcome in terms of our interaction with clients, landlords, especially existing landlords that are familiar with a traditional deposit, David. They've got that mindset of a chunk of money in the bank that is there at the end of a tenancy should things go awry, which ultimately isn't the case. It's there to be utilized, for the right reasons, and if not, it's the tenants, and rightly so. So that was a sort of a hurdle, a subconscious hurdle to overcome for a lot of the landlords. And some of the new landlords that knew no different at that moment in time, because they hadn't used a scheme before or chosen which of the schemes that they have as an option, that was more obstacle for us to say, look, this is something that's relatively new. You can benefit from that as a landlord, which means that you are having more protection, double the protection at the end of a tenancy. The process of getting your property back to market, having that void period reduced. And the attraction of additional tenants that can choose and are in a position to pay a traditional deposit, but would prefer not to, just because of the physical outgoings, that financial proportion at the start of a tenancy. So getting the current clients on board was a different obstacle from the new clients, because we were educating ourselves as the benefits, and it wasn't tried and tested then. We hadn't done the full journey of a tenant in and a tenant out. So a year down the line, you know, probably back to the question, you know, we're really comfortable and confident. We've had some scenarios where we've had to utilize a plan. That end of tenancy process is efficient, it's clean. Our property management team really benefit from that. You know, the interaction with tenants and landlords is quicker and smoother, and the outcome is as good, if not better, than we could expect from a financial perspective, if that was versus a traditional deposit. So being able to say, you know, and look a new client or current client in the eye to say the start, the middle, and the end process works well, is definitely a plus point. Landlords at the moment a little bit unsure of what to do with those reluctant clients that are on the fence. Is it time to sell? Lots more legislation. One more thing. It's nice to have some positives to say, look, this isn't going to be any cost to you. This is going to give you the protection you need, much more of it. Let us deal with it for you. And it's a positive in a difficult market for landlords, I think generally, but here in Wales as well. So yes, it's helping us attract tenants. It's definitely, you know, a retention tool for landlords, or an option that would allow landlords consider maybe increasing a portfolio, adding a property or two, because there is, you know, there's less risk but less spend as well. And yes, you know, we've got a great conversion rate of tenants over the last 4 months, possibly since just early into the summer, that have intending and choosing a traditional deposit, because that's maybe what they know from being an historic tenant, or that's what they assume is the case, to then make the change to take out a Flatfair plan before committing to the tenancy, knowing that, you know, instead of the traditional £1,000 rent and £1,100, £1,200 bond all at the same time, knowing that there's a smaller proportion of outlay, knowing that they are good tenants, they will occupy the property well, they're not going to run the risk of utilizing or needing the plan. It's almost the ideal scenario. So the conversion rate we're seeing from tenants intentionally going down the traditional deposit route to then changing their mind through choice with no pressure in any shape or form is increasing month on month, you know, and is genuinely that's quite impressive. So we're using that to sort of reassure tenants, and also to you know, to tell landlords this is the right thing to carry on choosing, and for those that haven't chosen it yet, to do, because we have a track record.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense as well, with the sort of the climate the way that it is. Even the best of tenants with the best of cash flow would take one look at it and say, look, if I don't need to put this sort of money out there, then if there is a different way that will offer my landlord all the protection and more that they need, and it will give me a fair outcome at the end of this whole process, I think most tenants sort of say, yes, that's what I'd like to do.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You know, it's unusual, and I think we were touching on this before we started the call, but there's no ulterior motive. It is a good thing for all people involved. You know, from our point of view as an agent, the administrative side of stuff is sped up. The end of tenancy process is quickened, so we've got less to do in a very busy pressing timeline anyway. The landlords are happy because the void periods are less. They've got more cover. You know, and the cost of being a tenant is very high. We know that. It's just really difficult, you know. And, you know, a huge proportion of our tenants are current tenants elsewhere, or with a self-managing landlord, or possibly with ourselves. So, you know, to have that, you know, the average rent is at its highest. So to have that applicable month's rent, plus the deposit they've already paid with that property from 1 year ago, to find their first month's rent and another deposit, that is a big ask for people. So when they don't have to through choice, because they're comfortable with how they're going to sustain their tenancy, so they are not disadvantaged, then absolutely, if it's taken, you know, 2/3, 3/4 of that initial outlay away, why would you not?
It seems like an absolute no-brainer. Now, we discussed off camera, we were talking about sometimes when you bed in a new solution, it's great at the beginning, and then the customer service side of things tends to peter off as you get more embedded as a customer. I mean, no doubt over time your needs as a customer also, you don't need that constant attention, but it's nice to know that it's there when you need it. You've had a different experience with Flatfair where it's been constant.
It has, to be fair, and I think, you know, going back to the initial conversations and what was the onboarding and what was the process after, that was a was a two-way street, really. You know, what was practical and realistic for them to do for us? What did we need that we felt was necessary for the team, for the buy-in, and so on. So the build-up and the preparation for it was great. It was very personable. It was physical. So we had, you know, the team come and introduce themselves, talk about the process, go around our branches, and then we had the virtual element thereafter. Since then, you know, we have what we've chosen, you know, weekly and fortnightly updates and reports to see what progress is being made, how we can do things differently and better, and how we can help them, and vice versa. Really personable. The points of contact that we've got are consistent. You know, we're building up that rapport, you know, and it's a very personable, friendly sort of, you know, interaction as opposed to maybe only speaking to them or us when there's a need, and it's not necessarily that, you know, that way. And anything that we need within reason in the meantime. So we've run 1 or 2 training days and sessions for the team as a whole. We've had 30, 40, 50 people attend morning and afternoon sessions on lots of topics, you know, that are insights and update with Good Lord, as we mentioned earlier, or other processes and protocols that we've got. So, you know, the team at Flatfair were more than happy to get involved in that, travel down and spent the day, you know, with us and the team interacting, and I think genuinely enjoyed doing it. So it's consistent thereafter. We're there when we needed, exactly as you say. As we start 2024, we'll probably reduce the frequency of that interaction, just because we are both comfortable, you know, ultimately I'm comfortable with that, and the team are on the back of my interaction with them. So so yes, it is as it is now, as it was 12 months ago, which I you know, which is
yeah,
really
no,
nice.
that is it's great to hear. And the question I'm going to ask you next sounds a bit daft, because assuming from the things that you've said, the answer is a resounding yes, but you wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to other agents, I presume.
No, and I, you know, genuinely I mean that, David, there, and I'm very conscious, as I know sort of so many of us would be, of not doing that when it's not appropriate. I don't like that, the thought of somebody or an agency or somebody that I could sort of interact with sort of, you know, on an individual basis, you know, to sort of fall short of what I've told them would be something to use or to sort of consider. So it's not very often I would be as all-rounded in a recommendation. But I am. I think it's the service that, you know, the post sort of, you know, introductions and sort of onboarding. Ultimately, the service to clients is really good, and it's consistent. We've had that journey over 12 months, so we've seen the start and the end process, and it's lived up to what we hoped it would be and what we set ourselves as timelines and parameters. You know, and it's, you know, it's difficult in terms of putting any ROI on it in monetary terms, or we can and we have, but, you know, it's not necessarily as simple as other scenarios. But where we are benefiting from is client retention, for sure, that we touched on earlier, the administration and the time involved in setting up that sort of, you know, the new tenancy. But ultimately, the end of a tenancy is where we're saving. You know, we've got happier clients with shorter periods of wait, income or funds coming our way, and the guys that deal with our end of tenancies, the property management team, that, you know, that's a thankless task at times, where we're sort of, you know, negotiating, you know.
Yeah, we often take that for granted, that's something they're going to have to do, but it's the hard end of the job, isn't it?
It is, and it is ultimately the most sort of, you know, it's the most sensitive touch point, you know, where tenants want to move on and get their deposits back, and landlords want the property in tip-top shape to find the next tenant. And then, you know, elsewhere in the department, we've got those guys that have organised the next tenant, you know, wanting things turned around quickly, ready for that start date. So that's where we're saving time. We've got, you know, a sort of a content team to utilize. So it's a really good thing from that point of view, which, you know, ultimately is the equivalent of an ROI or a pound sign I could put in front of it.
Fantastic. Ricky, thank you so much for your time and for talking to us about Flatfair today.
Absolutely not a problem at all. Thanks for asking me along, David. Much appreciated.
Thank you.